Welcome to the Chasing Mountains podcast. Today we are talking about
CEO entrepreneur,
born in 1964,
Jeffrey
Bezos.
Come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. Pave the way, put your back into it.
Tell us why, show us how.
Look at where you came from, now look at you now. I know that's an awkward intro, but there's a point to it. Do you remember the song on TikTok that blew up a few months ago called the Jeffrey Bezos song?
You told me about this song.
So you haven't looked into it all, or do you know much about it?
No, I know the song. I know the song now, yes.
Okay, the song blew up. I believe it got hundreds of millions of plays. But it's a song that a comedian, Bo Burnham, he's a comedian, and over the pandemic, he did a comedy special. It was called Inside. It was like a musical all alone in this one room. And he came up with a bunch of these magical songs, and one of them happened to be about Bezos.
Fun song.
And I've heard of this comedian before, but I didn't know that he did this kind of humor. And I found myself today going down a rabbit hole and just watching all of his stuff. A lot of fun. The song is very catchy. I don't think he knew quite how big that thing was going to get, but that's the power of social media.
I was going to say, I think ironically, you can get it on Amazon Music too, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
And today we're talking about Jeff Bezos. And though I know he's a pretty controversial person, a lot of people love to hate on him. I do want to point out the fact that his company is so massive and has revolutionized the entire world on how we shop. Like it's changed everything.
You know, yes, he's a controversial figure, I think largely because of his income. There's some other reasons we'll talk about, but one of the richest people in the world. And when I kind of dug into some things, I found that just getting some numbers together gave me a little perspective. And so I'm going to blow through some things here, but his net worth currently is around $140 billion. He owns about 10% of all Amazon shares, which is over 50 million shares. The stock price for Amazon at IPO in 1997 was $1.73. Within the last few years, it peaked at over $170 per share. So that's 100x growth. People get really excited about 10x your money and 10x growth. 100x is super impressive. Now that's over 2.5 decades, but the company, Amazon, the company's 2021 revenue was $420 billion.
Holy cow.
To answer your question about employees, Amazon employs 1.3 million people around the world. There are 9.5 million Amazon sellers globally. 3/4 of those use Amazon FBA. So
which a lot of people don't actually know that it's not Amazon selling everything. You can make a large income selling stuff on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Similar to eBay, but you're hidden a little bit more. It feels like it's coming more from just Amazon.
Yeah, well, and it is coming from Amazon. Amazon FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. So they stock your inventory. They actually fulfill the order. They handle logistics. Amazon Prime, they have 200 million members. At $140 a share, that's almost $30 billion per year, just from Amazon Prime that people are paying just to be in the club. And I did a little further digging.
Wait, say that again. How many people?
200 million members, Amazon Prime members.
Oh my gosh. I'm in the wrong industry.
I mean, for context, there's about 330 million people in the United States, just people that live in the US. And I did, for further context, I did a little bit of digging. If Amazon Prime were a country, it would have the 8th largest population in the world.
Wow.
There's 200 million monthly visits to Amazon.com.
200 million?
200 million. Yep. Monthly visits.
Half of those are my wife and Bobby back there, definitely.
When you really kind of look at some of those figures and you start to do the math, it's almost not as surprising that, when Amazon Prime is in some ways almost like passive income for the company, there's Amazon Prime, we can, online, you can watch videos and movies and things, but just paying to be in the club is that's just a membership fee essentially.
Well, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that there was a rumor that Jeff Bezos and his leadership team had actually talked to some of the people from Costco, and they were asking Costco why they were losing so much on certain products and didn't seem to care. And Costco came back and basically was like, look, that's not where you make your profit. You're sometimes taking a loss on what you're selling. It's the memberships. It's that guaranteed revenue yearly or monthly, and quickly after that meeting, which it's hard to really find the true story behind that. Some people say, oh, it was just an internal meeting. We decided to do it. There had to be some outside influence. And my God, what a business plan.
Well, in Amazon Prime used to be kind of a exclusive club, but clearly it's not.
Well, now you
anymore.
can get music, stream, like basically their own. They're like a Hollywood studio now. They produce blockbuster hits, and not to mention some of the other stuff they do. But gosh, 200 million subscribers to Prime. You do get, you get free shipping. You get a lot out of it, but the money that they make off that is just bonkers.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos, his net worth, it topped out last year, 2021, at $211 billion. I was going to ask you maybe to chat a little bit about just net worth, because I think that some of the controversy around Jeff Bezos and in any of these, absurdly wealthy entrepreneurs and business leaders, I think it revolves around the misunderstanding and the confusion between net worth and cash assets. It's really easy, I think, for some people when they hear that, last year Jeff Bezos was worth $211 billion, to think that he's got it sitting in the bank. What do you and I have talked about this before. I feel like you give a good explanation as to like what that really means when we talk about net worth.
Yeah, it really just breaks my heart a bit to see young people like regurgitate the stuff that they've heard on the news talking about, oh, how dare he make that kind of money, even though he's revolutionized the way the world does shipping, does shopping online. He has 1.3 million people that work for him. But net worth is not your income. Okay. Like you said, it's not sitting in his bank account. When you're really wanting to amass wealth, it's not you're trying to get your income up, because the government can just tax the crap out of your income. So what a lot of people do is they invest most all of their money back into the company to grow. Now, Jeff Bezos had a pretty nice start. He worked for a hedge fund. And so he obviously knew how to work with money and understood about savings and how to build wealth. He took some investment, got, I think it was like $300,000 from his mom and dad. They put it all into it.
Which was like
a ton of money back
Which was
then.
like their life savings, if I understood correctly. It wasn't just like rich parents.
Sure.
His mom, just to interrupt, his mom had him when she was 17.
Yeah.
And, obviously in that moment, not knowing that he would grow up to become the Jeff Bezos. But,
and you got to think about her. I mean, she was probably scared. I know she got married young because, that's the way it was back then. If you got pregnant, you got married, and she had this baby young, and the marriage didn't work out. And so she was alone. And, I think a lot of people in that situation, especially in this day and age, would have looked at her as a woman, like clearly disadvantaged, but how she was able to take and educate him, put him through the schools that needed to be. She ended up marrying a wonderful guy who ended up being a great father to Jeff. And that goes back to the last podcast we talked about, how just having that good father figure in your life. And man, talk about an investment into her son who ended up becoming a billionaire. But that goes back to even like net worth, man.
Sorry.
So no, that was a good point. But the company that he owns 10% of the company. As the company grows in wealth, he on paper owns that part of the company. So he's technically worth that much money. But if he wanted to liquidate, meaning sell all of that, like right now, if he was like, I'm going to sell all my stock, before he could sell half of his stock, the stock price would plummet because everybody would be freaking out thinking, what is going wrong with Amazon? Everybody would bail out, and basically it could bankrupt the company. So I look for, inspiration from people, and I talk to older people. It's like, invest in real estate, invest in assets. Don't just pay yourself as you're building your company $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, because that's going to be taxed. Pay yourself meager wage that you can continue to grow the company, put that money back in, because the government likes to look and say, hey, you've just invested $400,000 in new trucks, hiring people, and you built a small facility. You're doing something for the economy. That's a deduction. But you just built $400,000 worth more in your company. So I think there's a big misconception. He doesn't have $211 billion sitting in the bank. He may have $1 billion. It's not what people think. it makes me sad that we don't teach people about finances in school. I had to learn all of it later on in life. I'm still learning every single day. I read a book the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. And I don't want people to think that being successful and being rich is a bad thing. It's what you do with your money that makes you good or bad. Some of the most giving people I know are multimillionaires, and they go and they'll give so much money to people, and their first request is don't tell anybody. And that's the kind of person I want to be.
Well, just one thing to add too. I feel like maybe a relatable to the average person example of this valuation increasing, decreasing, and people's net wealth and net worth increasing is the recent real estate market. In the pandemic, if you own a house, you know that for most of us, the value of your home has dramatically increased over the last few years. And so like, as an example, I mean, in case you don't know, if you bought a house like 5 years ago for $200,000, there's a good chance that in today's market, that home value could be pushing $300,000, maybe $400,000 in value. So when we talk about like taxing based on wealth, so like a guy like Jeff Bezos, who's the value of his stock price, of Amazon stock price goes, through the roof over the course of a few years, over the course of, in his case, 2.5 decades. He owns 50 million shares, more than 50 million shares. So his net worth, obviously, as that stock price goes up, his value, his worth will then go up too. And to say that we should tax Jeff Bezos for that, or anybody for, their capital gains,
well, I mean, you do get taxed when you sell.
When it's realized.
That's capital gains.
And he is taxed for that. Yeah. Just like, if you were to sell your house and not roll the proceeds into a new property, you would be taxed on that capital gains too. But what a lot of people argue is that you should be taxed based on net worth. And so the problem is, again, just to keep it really relatable, that'd be like saying, okay, your $200,000 house in the last couple of years is now worth $400,000. And so your wealth, like you are actually $200,000 wealthier, but you haven't realized any of that gain.
It's not in your account.
You don't have $200,000 in your bank account. So in order to be taxed on that, if say there was a 10% tax on that gain, you would owe the government $10,000. So, or $20,000, excuse me, on that $200,000 that you increased. So you'd have to therefore then, in most people's cases, you'd have to therefore liquidate some of that in order to pay it. So you kind of have to destroy the wealth in order to be taxed on it.
It's like people's cars. Used cars went up in price so much.
Yeah, you're right.
Like I had a friend who had a $5,000 car. I mean, I don't drive new cars. I drive used cars. As long as they're reliable, I'll keep them. My car, even friends' cars, all of a sudden almost doubled in price because there was a shortage in chips. So it's almost like, well, my worth of that car went up, even though I paid less. It would be almost like having to owe taxes on that car. I think when it comes down to Jeffrey Bezos, now that song's stuck in my mind.
Jeffrey Bezos.
People have a tendency to hate him, but what he did good that I really appreciate about him is the way he thinks about every day is day one. Every day is a new day. What can we come up with that's new? How do we make our customers happier and satisfied? I think that they've revolutionized the 2-day shipping. I mean, when someone says it's going to be 4 days to ship me, I'm like, whoa, what is this, the dark ages?
A couple of things that I found interesting, if I could share.
Please do.
About kind of his journey of Amazon, from founding it to sort of along the way, because he's, as most know, he's not CEO anymore. He's executive chair. I think it was last year, stepped down. And
now he's off making penis-looking rockets.
Yeah, Blue Origin.
Blue Origin.
It's interesting to me. He became a millionaire shortly after the IPO in 97.
When it was $1.27 a share?
Yeah, $1.73. And it was only 2 years later, in 1999, he had a net worth of $10 billion. $10 billion.
And what's funny is he was still driving around the same Honda when he was worth $1 billion.
So he was driving a Honda Accord. He kept driving his same Honda Accord.
And the same crappy desk that they had when him and his wife started the company.
Yep.
To remind people where we came from.
Yep. And what matters. Like where you're spending money matters. And I thought that was pretty cool. Going from being a millionaire to a 10 billionaire, that's a big jump in 2 years' time.
But that happens, man. Don't you see that all the time where it's like work,
not 10 billion.
No. But I'm just saying that
Like
exponential growth.
Like how many musicians can you think of that like they had a big hit and they earned a few $100,000 and like go off the rails? And
that's a good point.
Suddenly they're outrageously rich in their mind. You know, they're buying the cars, they're doing all kinds of sort of temporary things with
as
their
they
money.
call balling out.
And
he was nerding out.
Yes.
I feel like Jeffrey Bezos just hit his peak. He's buffer, cooler looking now than he's been in his whole life.
What is with that physique, man?
I don't know, but I'm like Pillsbury Doughboy over here, and he's like ripped, and he's like 60 some years old.
You think he's on like growth hormone or
I don't know. It's like
steroids
probably like testosterone replacement. Joe Rogan rants and raves about it. I don't know anything about it.
He's probably got seriously, he probably has one of the world's best diets.
And probably the world's like best trainers.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's built this company and it's took him like 30 years to make it this big. He's no longer CEO. He's out trying to get to Mars. He's making rockets. I mean, this is like every nerd's dream.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that hate him. They hate his company, but for some reason, their porch will be full of Amazon boxes while they're opening
It's too
it
good
up.
a service.
It's too good of a service.
A big thing that helped them when times got tough. Like one of the themes I think that you and I have noticed when we talk about entrepreneurs on this podcast is that there's always periods of time where they have to sort of ride out the storm, where things get tough or business dries up, or
I feel like I'm only riding out storms.
spending more time in the storms than in the sunshine. Yeah.
I'm ready for the eye of the storm.
There were some interesting things that they had to deal with and that he had to deal with Amazon.
Like what?
Well, at the peak of the internet and .com bubble,
I guess for people who don't know, in the early 2000s, people were investing stupid amount of money into anything.com because the internet was new. They were putting billions of dollars into companies they probably shouldn't have. They had no product. They weren't selling anything. They just had good advertisement.
And there's some concerns about like currently the fintech space, blockchain, crypto, there's NFTs. There's some concern that, you know, is this hype? Is Web3 hype in the same way that
I will say, I believe whatever's left over is going to be like the .com bubble. Whoever makes it through will dominate. So I've got my bets in who's making it through.
I agree. Yeah.
And in the second it drops even more, I'm pouncing.
But if you hear some of that talk about Web3 and some of the stuff I just said, it's a lot of that I think stems from the .com bubble and, you know, around the year 2000. And so, you know, the effect on Amazon was that their stock peaked $113 at the time. And then the bubble burst in the beginning of year 2000, the year 2000. And their stock price dropped, falling all the way to $5.51 per share.
So people lost
by late 2001.
Millions.
It was a 95% drop.
Oh my, how did they survive that?
So if you invested, you know, $1,000, you've got $50 left.
Wow. But that's where if you leave it, Warren Buffett, we talked about this earlier. Warren Buffett is like, no, I haven't lost anything. I haven't sold it yet.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Be greedy when everybody's afraid and be afraid when everyone's greedy. What that means is on the bad days, buy. So whoever bought in at that 95% drop, that person just had to ride out the storm and eventually it'd be worth a ton of money.
And so that's one of the problems, by the way, with taxing gains in net worth. Because if you blow up and, you know, you 100x the value of your company or of your stock price, if we all agree that you should be taxed on that increase in net worth, then it poses the question of like, okay, then what happens in this situation when there's essentially a 100x drop? Like what happens when you lose 100x of your net worth?
Can I write that off?
Just by fluctuations in the market?
I wonder if they can. I don't know that much about the tax code when it comes towards the losses. I am not a fan of taxing like the overall net worth of people because what's going to end up happening, people are going to start moving their money outside of the country.
Well, real quick before we move on, because I want to make sure to just mention this again. We talked riding out the storm during that .com bust. I had mentioned that his net worth had gotten up to $10 billion by 1999. Like he did that, you know, in two years, he went from $1 million to $10 billion. But then the bubble burst. And in 2000, he had dropped to $6.1 billion. In 2001, he had dropped to $2 billion. And in 2002, his net worth had dropped to $1.5 billion. So,
I mean, I'd still be cool with that. But my God, from 10 to 1.
We know people that have kind of gone from nothing to top of the world and back down again. And that is a scary trip. He acknowledges that during that time, there they were doing pretty well as a company though.
Right.
Even though like the NASDAQ had dropped by 78% during that time because of that .com, bubble burst.
Really? They were that wrapped up in it.
Yeah. He said when they looked around the company, essentially, things were like working well.
And do you remember what the first name of Amazon was? It wasn't Amazon. It was something to the nature of like cadaver.
I think it was Cadabra.
Cadabra. Okay.
But someone, I think it was his dad maybe that said like, that's too close to cadaver.
That's right.
Because I'm guessing it was probably like abracadabra, like, how you would say in magic, which is kind of fun, but it's also close to cadaver.
I'm glad he took the advice of his father and changed it to Amazon. Yeah. So people don't know that originally they started off as just selling books online, and their major competitor was Barnes & Noble, and they pretty much put them down to just a few stores.
He talks about too how like selling all these other products, it wasn't that different than selling books. Do you want to talk about like Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, I do. So AWS is an interesting thing. It doesn't seem like something that Amazon would do. Do you know what AWS is?
Yeah, Amazon Web Services.
What is that?
So it allows businesses to host their website from Amazon servers, which is a super powerful way to operate. It's much cheaper and honestly probably safer and faster than what most mid-sized and small businesses could afford.
Have you seen the AWS semi that shows up to people? Let's just say you're a big company and you've got massive amounts of data. Well, what do you do with it? Are you going to upload it to the cloud? Ain't fast enough. They show up with an entire semi full of servers that they take out these huge trunk lines and plug it into your servers, and you dump it. And then you take it to their AWS place, and then they upload it that way. And then if you got more, they come back again. The money that they make off of that, I think shocked the world.
Amazon Web Services also hosts, I think, the CIA's website and supposedly Department of Homeland Security. I mean, we're talking top secret items of national security. So when you couple that with things like Alexa, and I think Ring now is part of Amazon, and some of the sort of home security,
always listening devices,
always listening, always watching type, devices that are integrated. If you start thinking about those within the context of our government at the highest levels of, sort of intelligence and secrecy, we start getting into some interesting, like intellectual property, big brother, privacy concerns.
That's scary.
That are, I mean, we're talking top secret items of national security. So,
Bobby, do you mind actually looking and seeing how much AWS makes Amazon a year?
So it said in 2021, it generated revenue of $62.2 billion US. And then this year it says 18.44 billion in the first quarter.
Wow.
Wow.
So that big moneymaker.
Yeah. We're praising Bezos a lot.
I wouldn't say praise. I look up to him in certain ways.
Well, as do I. But I think one of the arguments that you hear from people is just that's just simply too much money for one person to own, to claim. I would say you and I don't agree with that.
Wholeheartedly, I don't.
But I want to share I want to, again, provide a little more context because I think it makes for an interesting discussion. Jeff Bezos' current wealth at 140 billion. It is about 0.65% of the gross domestic product of the entire United States. About 1.9% of the total wealth of the 500 richest people in the world.
Wow.
It's 2,164% of the top 200 U.S. executives' total awarded compensation. But as we talked about, there's a lot of when you look at executive compensation, there are a lot of CEOs and executive leaders that are brought in to run and manage a company. They get stock options, they get all kinds of advantages that are part of their compensation package, but they're not necessarily the founder of the organization. And he's the largest shareholder at 10%. I mean, it was 10% of Amazon, 50 million shares. Like 140 billion is 6.35% of US existing home sales. I'll just put it this way. It's over 2 million times the median U.S. household income, his net worth. Almost 1.2 billion barrels of crude oil and 75 million troy ounces of gold. It's not 140 billion worth of Amazon.
It's other things, yes.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I like when I did the math, it's that's a kind of small portion of it. But I mean, you look at, he's got about $1 billion worth of real estate. He's got ownership in a variety of other companies, like we talked about.
Washington Post. He made them profitable.
He owns the Washington Post. He bought, I think, a pretty early stake in Google.
Wow.
Sold it off. It would be worth like several, I think, 1,000% higher, like tens of thousands % higher in value if he had kept it from the time that he bought it.
I still think he's doing okay.
You know, he's still made some good financial decisions. But when you start talking about billions and billionaires, like,
it's hard to understand.
It's hard to understand that scope and that scale. I was just curious, and I looked up LeBron James pretty recently became a billionaire, $1 billionaire.
Really?
Like $1 billion.
Good for him.
And, you know, in comparison, you got Jeff Bezos, who's worth 140 of those.
It's interesting to me how people will love celebrities, but hate wealthy business people, even though they bring more value a lot of times to the world than a celebrity.
Like, they provide jobs, they provide a product and service.
Like, I value music a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It can change an entire generation. I'm a musician. I love music. But
you're a musician, producer, you've had a record label.
Right.
All that, like
I
been a manager,
value
like
music.
Yes.
But he brings more to the world on the systems he's built.
Yeah.
Than
objectively speaking,
anything I could ever do.
Yeah.
And that's why he's got the billions of dollars. Now, I feel like sometimes, well, I think the main reason why people hate Bezos and hate Amazon is because there for a while, there was a narrative that Amazon pays no income taxes. The way that got put on the news was they pay no taxes. Not 1 year, they didn't pay income tax. In fact, they got a rebate for $129 million. And for a lot of people, they don't understand, they were operating at a loss for so long. And then a new tax policy came out, and they took all their losses and brought them forth to the 1 year that they were actually profitable, and they were able to get a rebate. That 1 year, they may not have paid federal income tax, but that doesn't mean they didn't pay any other taxes. There are billions of dollars of other taxes they did. Employer payroll tax. There's a portion that the employer has to pay outside of your income and your tax withholding. There's a portion we employers have to pay. The amount of money that people made off of property tax, buying fuel for their jets, their cars, just the amount of money in purchasing things, the amount of sales tax that they also bring every time they sell something. My zip code around here gets paid a portion. If I buy something in Illinois, it goes to Illinois. There's a portion of sales tax.
They've started doing that, yeah.
So as a company, it is a juggernaut for producing taxes for the local municipalities, and it's not for everywhere, but for the states and for the federal. So it's unfair for politicians. And I've even said it before that maybe they didn't pay their fair share, but that's not the case when you start to look into it. In fact, I'll probably put in the description below, MSNBC, yeah, one of those, did a really good video about that whole situation, about how much they pay in taxes elsewhere and how it kind of was spun kind of the wrong way. So a lot of people think they pay no taxes, and that's not true. If you pay yourself something as the owner, you have to pay taxes on that. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, our tax system needs to be changed and needs to be simpler. But there's a lot of things that rich people do that we average folks can do and save money on taxes. You know? Yeah,
and but beyond taxes, they've gotten a lot of heat about worker conditions, work conditions at the Amazon fulfillment centers. A lot of people, I guess, have overuse injuries. They don't get breaks, as much as they should, and their breaks are timed. They're watched and observed throughout the day.
Which that probably sucks, man.
Which has to suck. Average pay, I think, is $40,000 a year is the number that I saw.
And 1.3 million people work for him.
Yeah. Something that was interesting too is supposedly they prefer new employees in their fulfillment centers because they found that the longer people work there, the more productivity goes down, and the more money that employees demand the longer that they work there.
Well, they have some their turnover is 102%.
Yeah, so they're actually happy to send people away who no longer want to jump into that machine and just churn it out.
What do you do when you want it faster, you want it cheaper, and you want it tomorrow, but nobody wants to pay more? I don't want to be charged twice the value of my Amazon Prime.
Which has already gone up a decent amount.
Yeah.
I remember I think when I first got Amazon Prime, it was
$7.99. I remember.
Well,
I was like an early adopter.
Yeah. Annually though, it was like $100 or less, I think.
I don't know. I paid monthly when I had it. So what's interesting is like, if you're a pregnant lady, you get it like half off.
You get a discount?
You get a discount. And I think for some people, if you're on like special programs, you can even get it for free. It's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about Pumbaa the Roomba. Do you mind?
No, not at all. Because we've talked about it. You should share it because we got our Roomba from Amazon, so I think it's fitting. Didn't you get yours?
Yes,
from Amazon. Yeah. So tell us about Pumbaa.
First off, in the beginning, I would have never spent that kind of money online. That was stupid. When I grew up, you didn't spend any money online. You didn't date anybody online. You didn't do it. Like you didn't put your information at all online. But now I'm willing to spend thousands of dollars. Anyways, my wife's company, we bought a Roomba we call Pumbaa the Roomba. And I know for a fact that the Roomba app only will record the square footage up to 281,500 square feet.
And how do you know that?
I know that because we're at like 350,000 square feet on this Roomba. And I know that because our square footage of her salon is around 4,000 square foot. And every single night I have that Roomba vacuum about 2,500. And one particular day I was looking at the app, I was like, wait, why did it time out? Like it quit at 281,500. And then I kept counting. So that was back in like December or January of last year. And it's just every night kept going. This thing has over 300 and some thousand square feet that it's done. It's a hair salon.
Because you did the math, right? Like you were able to determine that even though it quit recording, like this is where it's at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just stopped recording it. And every single night it does it. And we're not talking about easy vacuuming. It's tough. Mm-hmm. Hair. We're talking about like, occasional product that falls on the floor. I've had to replace the propellers like 3 times. But I'm so impressed and I'm so thankful that I bought it. We did the math one day. I was like, every night I was helping my wife for an hour to vacuum the salon for 6 days a week. That's 6 hours a week that I'm not with my family. Not to mention
just vacuuming the floor.
To help her. And every other week we were going out, we're paying someone to come in and do a deep clean on the floor. And we did the math. We were like, look, this robot can vacuum the entire thing while I'm sleeping and being with my family. And I paid a lot of money because I have the Roomba that can get into the corners. And it also has a vacuum bin that it can pull into, recharge, and empty the vacuum bin out. Mm-hmm. And with that package, it also came with a mop. But the mop, I'm telling you, that thing has 20,000 square feet that it's done. So compared to the 320 plus thousand to the 20,000, that poor mop it does not do well.
What's it like? Is there like a Roomba product that you use for the mop? Like some kind of
no, it's its own little
solution
Roomba mop. It's like a Roomba mop. It just goes around and it sprays out and then tries to mop.
Like what's it spray is what I'm asking.
Oh, it has cleaner that you put in it. And it just does not do well. But the Roomba that we call Pumbaa the Roomba, that's what all the girls at the salon call it. That thing just doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. And I'm so impressed. I ordered it out of frustration and got it in a few days, like 2 days, got it set up, and it saved me money. And it allows me to be with my family at night instead of helping my wife out and vacuuming.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how far we've come to where back in the day, I would never buy anything online. And I just dropped almost $1,500 on this combination, which is a stupid amount of money to spend on a Roomba.
But like super worth it.
So worth it. Time with my family. And also it saved our company money to have to pay a cleaner. Yeah. Now this AI type, mapping of the salon, it goes from not ordering online to where I got this robot vacuuming every single night better than I could do. So we've come a long way.
We've got one here and we have, as you know, mostly like my wife and I have one at our house and we have 2 dogs and mostly hardwood floors. And so it runs all the time, but we always joke, it's like having when we start cleaning the house on the weekends, it's like having a third person on the team. That's like the Roomba's in the other room vacuuming while we're doing dishes and one of us is doing laundry. And so it's like, these 3 things are getting done at once and it's just this force multiplier in cleaning the house. So,
and it's funny how you can put a personality to it.
Oh yeah.
Like all the girls, oh, he got stuck again. And then they'll go grab it. All right, little buddy. And they clean him out and put him back. But it saved a lot. And it's changed so much in the last 22 years from 2000 to think of how far we've all come to where we're putting all of our information online. We're buying everything online.
It's interesting to take that further, how consumer habits have changed too. You know, what people are willing to do. I have no interest in like driving around town shopping for a unique product. I don't have to do that anymore because I can go on Amazon almost every time and find that unique product. And what I find now, maybe this is partly the result of the pandemic, but like now even easy things that I know where to go get them. I just don't have necessarily a lot of time, or I'm wrapped up with something else. You know, now we have the baby. For me, it's just easier to order that simple thing on my phone and know that it's going to be here in a couple of days. And I don't have to go to the store at all, even though I know where to go and what I want to get. So just this idea that like even normal household needs can be brought to your door.
Well, I have a diaper subscription.
Do you?
That I just
through Amazon?
Yes. And here's the thing. The person who fulfills
it. Is it for you or for your kids? Or like, what
it's for me. No, It's for my kids. They know about the size of diapers your kids need as they grow. And they'll
creepy.
It is creepy. Well, I mean, like you say, I need infant diapers. Well, they know for this many weeks, they probably need this size of diapers, and it just sends them to you.
Yeah.
You don't even have to think about it because Lord knows I forget all the time. And the only time I'm cursing or going to the store is because my kid just pooped and we're out of diapers. So it's an amazing thing. So that's why we keep the subscription.
I wonder if the next iteration of Amazon Prime is going to be sort of your sort of a really complex user profile. Y'all can steal this idea over at Amazon if you want. This complex user profile where you're just like, okay, here's my typical weekly shopping list. Like, here's what my family uses through the week. Like what the product is and how frequently we use it, whatever. And Amazon can figure out, okay, so that particular product is going to last this amount. It's got so many servings or so many uses, whether it's a soap dispenser or paper towels or whatever. And then, it will just like basically all your household items will just come in mass shipment, big boxes, like every week or month.
Amazon's algorithm is so creepy that sometimes when I'm thinking about stuff, it's like they're suggesting it to me. They're like, well,
maybe they're doing it anyway. They just haven't like rolled it out yet.
But it's like, well, okay, we know he has children. Mm-hmm. We know he likes to watch Jack Reacher. We know his wife just bought this. He probably is going to want this. And then I see him like, oh my God, I do want that. Yeah. It's creepy.
And Amazon Web Services can track even stuff, if hypothetically can track like what you're doing on other websites if they wanted to. And then they can listen to you with Alexa.
It's convenient. Oh my God.
We're going down the rabbit hole here.
It's convenient, but it is creepy.
Yeah.
Like, man, we put so much of our lives out there on the internet. If someone wanted to change our entire world for us they really could. You ever seen the movie The Net?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With Sandra Bullock?
Why are you asking that? Did we tell you we watched that just like a few days ago?
No.
I had never seen it. So
it's a good movie, but it freaked me out at a young age. It's about a girl who nobody really knew her. She was kind of an introvert, so she was always in her home.
Right.
And she was always online. She was one of the first people on the internet, like ordering pizza, so nobody saw her.
Pizza.net.
Pizza.net.
Did we talk about that before?
No.
I feel like you told me.
No.
We'll finish your story. Let's go back to Pizza.net.
But anyways, they decide she found something out. Something, I forget the secret on like some secret website she found. What was that? You just watched? I haven't watched it in 15 years.
I don't remember.
She hacked into something she wasn't supposed to. Anyways,
I think she was sent a disc that yeah, you're right. There was like an error in a game that was like deep in the code was hiding like all this. It was like a portal into all these government secret files, basically.
Right. And they wanted to eliminate her.
Yeah.
And so they went on the internet and changed all of the data, changed what she looks like, her social security number, anywhere she was trying to get away from them. And she realized they were trying to kill her. In fact, they replaced her in her house with somebody else.
Yeah.
And because nobody knew who she was. And that, I think maybe at a young age watching that, what year did that come out, Bobby? You can, check that out. But it scared the crap out of me. And I think that's probably why I'm so paranoid of like Alexas and all that stuff, always listening devices. I could go down that rabbit hole quick.
It was a fun movie though.
But 1995.
95?
95? God, I'm old.
Pizza.net
you,
was when she ordered that on that movie, that was the first online pizza order that had ever been placed, I guess. Like, I think that they actually had that set up and it was like ordered pizza that way.
Wow.
Like it was we should talk about that at some point, but are you sure you didn't? I thought originally you told me that, and then I came across that.
I talk nonstop, so I don't remember half the crap I say.
As much that comes in just goes out.
Yeah, that's why I tell people, like, sorry, I say it. It doesn't always mean it's right.
That's why we have to have this podcast, because it allows us to learn a bunch of things to prepare and then document it and then forget all of it. Oh, yeah. But we have a record of it.
And look back at how dumb I can be. But that's the whole point of this podcast, is we called it Chasing Mountains because we are going through these things. We're trying to start companies. We're trying to grow. We're trying to personally to grow. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I look at someone who's at the top and it's like, no, I may not be a billionaire, but can I be influenced by these people and inspired to just be a little better, to try new things? I don't want people to think that being wealthy is a bad thing. I feel like it's almost honorable these days to be poor. I want people out there to be wealthy. I want them to change their generation's wealth so that their kids' kids can live off their money. And even if not that, just be able to go on vacation without worrying about paying rent. Like, business is amazing. I've told you how it's changed my life completely, to where completely and utterly broke, having nothing, but focusing on trying to grow a business or understanding how finances work has changed my life. And I know it's changed other people's lives dramatically. And I don't want people to just be hating on business or hating on success. I think it's easy to hate because we can get jealous. Mm-hmm. I find myself, well, he only got that because his daddy was rich or his mommy was rich. It's like, well, if I had $1 million, could I turn it into $1 billion? I don't know. Maybe, probably.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. But my point is like, I'm trying to get from broke to millionaire and then from millionaire to billionaire.
So one day let's do a podcast on like a wealth mindset, because I think that's what you're talking about.
Thank you. Yes.
Is that this confidence that you can take $1 million and turn it into $1 billion. It comes from the way that you think on a daily basis. And I think that those that maybe like are in a position where they haven't found that path yet, they haven't found the passion, they haven't quite figured out how to build something, create something that they love and that can grow and can be fulfilling for them. That's okay. And it's a matter of, I think, having that mindset of building, creating, and being a doer, a maker, a creator,
and constantly looking for that
constantly
opportunity.
Looking for that. Yeah. And if you think that way versus instead of seeing the negative all the time or, pulling people down, pulling yourself down, you think about opportunity and what could be instead of what isn't and what you don't have and what you can't do. That's not a wealth mindset. That won't work for you in your life, and it won't build you anything in your future. And so many of the people we've talked about on this show and just other instances, if you look at people that do accomplish great things in life, a lot of those people, their mindset was already locked in before they got there, long before they got there.
Like their mind was a millionaire when they were broke.
Yeah.
I've met those people.
And I don't mean like spending habits,
no.
But I mean like, how can I turn this thing? How can I invest here versus there? How can I turn my, instead of $1 million to $1 billion, it's how can I turn this, dollar into $100?
Right. I have a perfect example of something that inspired the crap out of me. One particular day I was kind of in my own feelings, kind of whining a little bit about something I'd gone through, woe is me, blah, blah, blah.
Had I insulted you or something?
No, it was way before I ever met you. And it was when I was way broke.
The dark ages.
The dark ages. I heard a story of a woman who was going through some pretty tough times, and she had children. And there's something about a mom having children and having to provide. That sounds
like tough times. As a new parent.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, she was going through tough times. She was a single mom and she was having trouble paying some bills. Instead of like complaining about the situation, she thought, I'm going to go to Dollar Tree and I'm going to buy different things and I'm going to combine them into packages and I'm going to sell them on Amazon. For example, she would go buy a bunch of party stuff and sell a packaged party kit for a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And she'd make them into these packages, or the bachelor first home kit, like, paper plates, knives and forks, your first silverware. Like she would just have them in a thing, and she might only spend $40, would sell it for 150.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of broke my brain. I was like, okay, hold up. She went to Dollar Tree. She purchased some stuff, packaged the stuff that people can go buy themselves at Dollar Tree, and sold it on Amazon for convenience. And she made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, if she can do that, I can do this type of stuff. I can think outside of the box. Look at Gary Vee. He's always telling people, go to a garage sale, buy some stuff, flip it on Facebook. That stuff works. That type of stuff has brought me out of absolute poverty into, I can pay rent this month. I can buy food today. And it's amazing when you get in that mindset of, all right, how do I get out of this? It leads to, well, how do I turn this $1 into 10? How do I turn this 10 into 100? How do I turn this 100 into 1,000? And the next thing you know, you have an opportunity to invest that 1,000 and make 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you fail, because Lord knows I have. But I feel like I asked you to look something up, Bobby.
The divorce information for Bezos and his wife, I sent you as well, but it's $38 billion.
Oh, whoa.
But she donated $4.2 billion, I believe it was.
to
charity.
Mm.
Well, when you got 50, 4 doesn't sound like a lot.
I'd be good with that.
Once again, though, that she probably did that to get a tax write-off. Help a lot of people, get a good tax write-off. But I do think that people overlook how much she helped him in the hard times. She was there helping deliver stuff to USPS, UPS, FedEx. She was there for it, man, you can't underestimate a good partner in a startup. Because when you're down and out, you need someone to be like, hey man, let's do it. You got this.
Yeah.
Let's pull through.
Well, I mean, look at us with this show. I mean, we have to divide and conquer, and we do.
Because you have values, not even values, skills that I don't have.
And vice versa.
Right.
And so,
for those who don't know, I'm extremely dyslexic. So he does not let me spell anything. It's like, well, Jacob, that's one way of spelling it.
well, just having a partner it helps, because it's humbling with the highs and uplifting, I think, during the lows, you know, to have somebody kind of along for the ride. Because trying to build something great is sometimes lonely. And, I having the right partner makes a big difference. But, I would encourage people to, pair up with people they trust that can add value to whatever that project is. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I just want to encourage people, like, go out there, make something cool. You never know what it's going to turn into. It may not be a billionaire worth $140 billion right now, whatever it is, but it could also just change your family's life and change your life.
It could also make you 140 billionaire.
It could.
Because
how many of these people who are billionaires started off from like a single mother, like,
right.
and their fathers weren't around, or there was some issues with like growing up. There's like a tragedy, like Steve Jobs. He was adopted. His parents just gave him up for adoption. He didn't know who they were. And he was adopted by a wonderful family. Or even like Walt Disney, he had some tragedies at a young age that, really caused him to go inside and be creative, So,
but most of these, most of the folks that we've talked about up until this point have started out like super normal, average, everyday people.
Right.
And like Jeff Bezos, I think worked at McDonald's when he was young. But yeah, it's, I thought it was kind of interesting. You talk about Steve Jobs, both him and Jeff Bezos didn't know their biological father didn't know that, for both of them, they didn't know that their sons were these big, mega, ultra wealthy stars of business. Steve Jobs' dad didn't know his son was Steve Jobs. And it was the same for Jeff Bezos until recently for both of them, I guess. But
yeah, because his father died in 2015, his biological father. And
Steve Jobs?
No, I'm sorry.
Bezos?
It was Bezos' father. Yeah. His father actually owned a bicycle shop and was struggling for years. Obviously they were teenagers when he was born, and they tried to make the relationship work. It didn't work out. She, left him, and he gave up his visitation rights. And, it wasn't until like later on in life, he found out that was his son. So kind of the guy putting him out of business because a bike shop was struggling, was that he found out it was his son worth billions of dollars, and they ended up not meeting because he just wanted to meet his son. But I think it was just at that point in time, it wasn't his father. His father was the man who raised him.
Sure.
We could talk all night about this. Like I said, he's not perfect, but
some love him, some hate him.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, we should all just strive to make good things and create a good product and make some money.
Focus on the client, focus on the customer. Well,
let's wrap this up, brother.
Okay. You want to take us out?
Everybody, thank you for recently subscribing to our channel. I think as we sit right now, we got like 5,100, 5,200 subscribers. Thank you. We started this podcast with 0 and we thought we were successful when we hit 100. So thank you. We're up to almost 5 million views on our channel. So thank you. We appreciate it. It's humbling.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
And we're dum-dums. We're going to say a lot of stupid stuff. So be forgiving, please. Anyways.
But we got a long way to go.
We do.
And we're excited for the ride for sure.
Yeah. And we want your feedback. We're excited about it. And just be a part of the channel. Let's try to make some cool stuff. Anyways, peace out, everybody. We're Chasing Mountains Podcast.
The thoughts and opinions on this show do not reflect those of our advertisers, employers, or other affiliates. The content should not be considered legal or financial advice. The Chasing Mountains podcast is a production of Chasing Mountains Media. Copyright 2022.